guys, welcome to our very first episode of our brand new podcast, Just Us Being Us. I am your host, Adella Relentless, and I am here with my two co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Kix, the problem child.
And I'm BugBee, the anxious one.
And clearly I'm normal. So
we'll go with that.
Only on days that end in Y.
Yeah, that's questionable. And our other two co-hosts, just so for those of you guys that are on the YouTube videos, we have my dog Apollo, and Hades is kind of over here somewhere. You guys will probably see them walking on and off the set. Apollo actually looks like he's about to fall asleep right now, but that's okay. But they are kind of our comfort buddies, and truthfully, we just enjoy having them here. So hopefully you guys get to enjoy kind of watching them too. But so to give you guys just kind of a little premise on this podcast and really what it's about, we are going to be talking just about mental health struggles, mental health awareness, and really just overall mental health in general. We recently kind of went through something in life that kind of really opened up our eyes to this scenario and really inspired us to kind of want to produce this podcast, because it was a pretty scary situation, I think. We have a really good friend of ours that kind of went through a really tough time in her life, and truthfully experiencing that scenario was pretty scary. I mean, yeah, it definitely threw us for a loop. So, you know, despite how scary and how dark of a time that was, it really kind of inspired the whole reasoning for this podcast. So to kind of just give you guys a little background story on what kind of took place and what really was the inspiration behind this, we plan to very much leave out names, because a lot of these situations, especially what we're talking about, can be very personal. And since our friend obviously isn't one of the people on this podcast, we just want to make sure that that situation stays very private to her. And obviously later on, if you guys want to share some stories with us and we get permission from you guys to kind of talk about that on the show, then we'll give the same amount of respect to make sure that there are no names involved. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what took place on that, BugBee and I specifically were going to go to a concert 1 month, like a couple months ago, right? Roughly. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's been a bit. So yeah, I mean, just to let you guys know, like, we obviously did not just wake up one morning and we're like, hey, we're going to do a podcast and just started recording. We actually really put a lot of thought into this and felt very inspired and driven. And we actually have a couple like rehearsal episodes that we did before this one. So we'll maybe think about releasing those. We're not sure yet.
At least as a blooper.
Yeah. Right?
Blooper.
Yeah.
Oh, there's for sure bloopers.
There's definitely some good bloopers in those. But so yeah, just to give you guys an idea of what took place. So yeah, about 3 months or so ago, we were gonna go to a concert, and we kind of had, obviously we have kids, so, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, but we were gonna go to this concert, and I needed somebody to watch my kids while my mother-in-law was still at work. So we reached out to our friend and asked her, hey, do you mind if you watch my boys, specifically my kids? And my mother-in-law doesn't get off of work until around 6 p.m. So she said, yeah, that's no problem. It's perfectly fine. I do kind of have a work meeting tomorrow, so let me check the situation on that, and I'll definitely let you know in the morning. So morning rolls around. I think it was like 8 a.m. She texts me and lets me know, hey, I got my meeting moved. We're good. Bring the boys on over. I'll take care of them. I'll have my mom drop off my daughter. It would be great. So I said, awesome. Like, thanks. Really appreciate it, you know. And all of a sudden, my day at work just gets super stupid busy. So I didn't really talk to anybody outside of my general work vicinity. And on my drive home, I'm supposed to actually be making my way down to Wichita, Kansas, where the concert was taking place. And I suddenly get a phone call from BugBee going, hey, just so you know, my mother-in-law is going to watch the boys, because our friend's mom, her husband had to call BugBee and basically just be like, hey, she's not feeling well, And so can you get somebody else to watch the boys? And so I was like, oh, well, okay, like that's fine. I mean, cool, as long as somebody's watching my boys, you know.
For the record, a little background. All of our husbands, Kix husbands was not involved in that. But anyway,
Yeah.
Adella and I's husband, and then this other friend, her husband as well. The three boys, they grew up together, and so all of the parents know each other.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't like she was just leaving her boys with some random.
Yeah.
stranger.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I don't know you, but sure, go ahead and watch my kids.
Yeah, why not?
No, never.
I just knew that she had a really busy day, and she was like already stressed out. So when they called me, I was like, okay, I'll just figure out what to do with the boys, and then I'll tell her that's what we're doing with the boys.
Yeah. My favorite kind of person comes to me with the problem and the solution. So
Yes.
I'm good with that.
So don't panic.
yeah.
I got the solution already.
Yeah. So yeah, so then after that, like obviously the concert happened. We hadn't really heard from her, and for us it's really not all that weird for us to kind of disappear from our group chat. For just to kind of give you guys a little background on that, we do actually have a group chat between the four of us. It's just kind of our day-to-day check-in, venting, whatever. And mostly filled with Astarian from Baldur's Gate right now, but that's all right.
Yes, accurate.
But
Oh no, you're having a bad day.
here's
Here's
Astarian.
Astarian.
Everyone needs him in their lives.
But so we hadn't heard from her in this group chat for like a couple days, and at this point we weren't really thinking anything of it because it's really not that abnormal for us to disappear from that group chat. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the super guilty one of that right now. My day at work just gets so busy that I don't have time to check those things. And so after a while, a week goes by, a couple weeks go by, we still don't hear from her, and we're like, okay, now
weird.
something's
It's
up.
not a normal
Yeah.
absence.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, this is not just we haven't heard from her, but we've reached out and she hasn't responded.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's where it got even more concerning because we're like, hey, are you okay? And we wouldn't hear anything.
Right.
I mean, it got to the point I had to call her husband, text her husband. I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, I don't want to bother you guys. I understand you're going through a tough time, obviously. I don't know what's happening. You don't have to tell me. But is she okay? Because I haven't heard from her and I'm starting to get really concerned.
Right. Yeah. And so at this point, because I mean, we kind of have a weird thing with our chat where, you disappear for a couple days, fine. We won't really question it.
Yeah.
But you disappear for a week, we're like, hey, are you still alive? Like, should we be concerned? Should we be planning a funeral right now? Like, it's very abnormal for us because we are such a close group of friends that it really makes us wonder, okay, this really isn't normal. Because most of the time, if life gets busy for us, we might not necessarily keep up with the conversation, but you'll still see us like hearting
in.
something
Yeah.
or just nice or some kind of acknowledgement.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was just total blackout.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, we had no idea. And then on top of that, we were left with a lot of questions about, because we were just told she wasn't feeling well.
Right.
So we're over here wondering, okay, does she have COVID?
Yeah.
Is she sick? Did, you break a bone? Like,
Right.
how severe is the
Right,
situation?
exactly.
And so when we were just left with a lot of questions, it really just kind of made us wonder. And obviously we know she has some mental health struggles as well. So we were really just wondering, did something kick in? And so we were left completely in the dark. And finally, after like a couple weeks or so had gone by and us reaching out to her family and making sure that she's okay, we finally get a response from her, and she just openly comes out and tells us, I really hit a bad case of depression. I'm not doing well right now, and I've even taken some time off of work.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get back to me. And it was so weird for us because we are so used to us talking about our mental health. And obviously on days that we struggle more than normal, we're pretty vocal about it. So we realized that this situation was a lot worse than we thought it was.
Right.
And it kind of made us take a step back and go, oh my gosh, how did we miss this?
Yeah.
I mean, it was such a huge eye-opening situation that we're so used to these mental health struggles on the day-to-day with our own personal lives that when that situation rolled around, we were jaw dropped because
Yeah.
we didn't know. And so it was one of those things where it really inspired this whole podcast to kind of realize, oh man, I think it's a bigger deal than a lot of us lead on, even us dealing with it ourselves. And it's kind of funny because Kix wasn't really involved in that whole situation. She was in the group chat, but she also kind of had no idea what was going on because obviously since BugBee and I knew about what was going on because we were there.
Yeah, so we were going to the concert.
Kix over here is just like, hey, have you guys heard from her?
I was just in my own little world.
Yeah, she's like, is she?
We're like, oh yeah, by the way.
Yeah, so here's the situation. And she's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a really big turn of events for us. And it really inspired the podcast and wanting to just bring more awareness to mental health and self-care and just really knowing that just because you deal with it, just because your friends deal with it, it's definitely not something to overlook because it can turn at any moment. I mean, especially like with our friend, 8 a.m. in the morning, she's perfectly fine. But then by noon, you're like,
she wasn't fine.
Right. And it was such a quick turn that even we were thinking, what the heck happened? So hopefully this podcast really will just bring some good light to you guys in some of those dark times. Hopefully some of our stories and just our inner thoughts about them now will really help you guys just get a good laugh in your day and really just know that at the end of all of this, you are not alone. And the way that you are feeling about things and the thoughts and the struggles that you have, there is nothing wrong with you as a person. It's just there's a lot of, chemical imbalances that are going on. There's things that are weighing you down heavier than normal. And these are perfectly okay things to be going through and dealing with. And we just really hope that this podcast can give you guys something to look forward to on a weekly basis. And like I said, just a moment of laughter when you need it in those dark times. So just to kind of give you guys a little background on us and who we are. Like I said, my name is Adella Relentless, and it will stay that way for the purpose of this podcast. My last name is not exactly the most interesting last name, so we're going to leave it at that. But I am a wife. I am a mother. I have two absolutely beautiful boys who I love more than anything. I work full time. And really, this podcast is just kind of something I love doing with these two ladies and really just want to kind of do something for myself, So I think that this is going to be a really good experience and I hope all of you enjoy it too. But overall, I'll let these ladies kind of introduce themselves because I might be really bad at it.
So I am Kix, or Rebecca is my normal name.
Your normal name.
Normal name.
You should tell them how you got the story of Kix.
I mean, it was given to me by someone that I had never met, and
those are the best nicknames.
I enjoy nicknames, so it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
It's not the worst name I've been called, so let it stick.
It's fine.
But I am a mother. I have a lovely 8-year-old daughter. I go to school for political science, and I work part-time for now. And I struggle with ADHD and get into that some more as the podcast goes on. But that is the basics of me.
Oh, yeah. I guess I probably should have mentioned my mental health struggle. So for those of you that don't know, I struggle with both anxiety, depression, and OCD. And how anxiety and depression go together, I'm still trying to figure that out. But apparently, and according to my therapist, they do definitely go together. Yeah. So that's one thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm so anxious. I need to get this done. Other side,
I'm so
I just want to
sad.
come
I
listen
can't
to
do
this.
this.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just, how those two go together, I have no idea. But yes, those are the mental health struggles that I will be talking about on the show. I do not take any medication for my mental health struggles. I prefer a lot of just meditating and therapy techniques in order to kind of help get me through all of this stuff. I took medication in the past, but I just didn't really like the way it made me feel. I felt like I wasn't really in control of me and my personality. And I'm not saying medication is bad. I definitely am in full support of medication or therapy, really. But it just for me personally, it just wasn't something that I felt really agreed with me, which, and truthfully, I feel like because I did a lot of therapy and am continuing to do therapy, actually, I feel like I've become very self-aware of me and my thoughts and knowing when each of these things are kicking in, and it's been really cool kind of getting to learn some of the tools with them. But yeah, sorry, totally forgot to mention that in my intro, but you know, now
It's
I'm
okay.
starting to wonder if I have ADHD, so there we go.
I completely forgot about it also. And then she said that. I was like, oh yeah, that is kind of, why we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm BugBee. My real name is Bailey. You guys will see that, but Bug was a middle name, and Bug was a middle name.
Wow.
You did take your meds.
Have I taken my meds? I did take my
Okay.
meds. Bug was a nickname when I was a kid, and then B was also a nickname. So I just kind of put those together for BugBee. I like that a lot.
And in case you guys didn't know, my name is Adella.
It's just
my
Adella.
actual name's Adella. You know, since we were all giving out our real names anyways.
Yeah.
Well, at some point we're gonna slip and call each other.
Yeah,
by
it's just gonna happen.
just
we
gonna
don't
happen.
walk around calling each other Kix and BugBee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
I mean, we call you Adella, but
Yeah. Luckily, we do call you that.
Yeah. I got the easy one.
It could be worse.
It's true. Yeah.
But yeah, so I am a mother as well, wife. I have a 6-year-old little girl, and she is my pride and joy. She is a handful. I love her to death. She's gonna do great things one day. And I struggle with ADHD. I have PTSD is a new one that just recently diagnosed. So working through those things. I also have anxiety, depression, all stemming kind of from my ADHD. And
So
it's a
for
good
those
time.
of you that are wondering, she is a really great source for different types of mental health struggles.
I struggle with all the things.
And apparently occasionally forgetting to take her meds.
Yeah. So as she is saying, I do take medication for my things, and I try to kind of work things out in my head and mentally prep for different things, and I honestly just don't have the energy, I don't have the time, I don't have the willpower to go through that. So I started taking medication. I think it's been about 2 years now since I started taking medication, and it has drastically changed my life for the better.
I can
been
vouch.
great.
I definitely saw her go through that time.
Yeah.
That was a very, and honestly, you really have a very interesting story on how you found out about your depression and other
Yeah.
mental struggles.
Yeah, because I didn't really realize that I was depressed.
Right,
I
yeah.
couldn't figure out why I wasn't happy. Like, I have a beautiful family, I have a beautiful home, I have a wonderful job. Well, my job wasn't great at the time.
I was gonna say at that time.
I made a career change, and it's much better now. But I still had a good job. We had a good income. Really didn't have any reason to not be happy. There's people out there that are struggling way more than we ever were. And I just couldn't figure out why I wasn't happy. I just never felt happy. And I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. And there was one day I was leaving work. I had a particularly
You've got words.
words are
Words
hard.
are hard.
I had a particularly stressful day at work, and it was just very draining for me. The job I was in at the time was a very extroverted job, and I'm very introverted. So it took a lot of my energy to be successful in that job. And I was, but it took a lot of my energy. So I was running on empty. I had nothing left. And I had to go pick up my daughter from my in-laws' house. I didn't want to pick her up. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my daughter to death. There's absolutely nothing I wouldn't do for her. But in that moment, I just hadn't I had nothing left of me to give, and I knew as soon as I picked her up, she was going to require me to talk to her, to entertain her, to feed her, because at this time she was only 2.5, I think, 3, somewhere right in there. So she was still pretty young and required a lot of attention. and I just didn't have any attention to give. And so my in-laws live just slightly north of the town that I live in, so you kind of have to drive into the country a little bit. And I actually drove past their house because I was just crying and I didn't want to pick her up. And I drove like 10 miles past their house before I pulled over, and I like took some deep breaths, and then I turned around, and of course I went back. I would never leave my daughter ever. Like, I could never do it. Like, in that moment, I felt like I was just so overwhelmed I didn't know what to do, so like I ran away. But I would never leave her.
Right.
There's absolutely no way I could.
Yeah.
So that was really my breaking point where I was like, okay, I need help.
Yeah.
And I got help, and it's been much better.
Yeah.
Much better since
And you
then.
kind of had a similar situation to that too when your husband went to Turkey, where
Mhm.
it was just you and your daughter, and you I remember you telling me at one point your precious moments of just silence was like literally you putting her in the car and then walking
to my
around
door.
to to the
Yes.
My
driver's
car
seat.
door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that like 5 seconds it took for me to get to my car door. I was like, oh, peace and quiet. Yeah, that year was the first time that I had ever gone to therapy,
Yep.
and it was a terrible experience.
Oh,
That's military healthcare for you,
Oh gosh.
where I was really feeling like I was crumbling under just the anxiety of my husband possibly being in danger, and then me being home with a 2-year-old by myself, away from family. I didn't really have a support system, and it
Right.
was just me, and I was going to school and I was working, and it was rough. It was a very rough time.
yeah.
And so eventually I just said, I need help with just this like crushing anxiety that is
Mhm.
sitting there. I don't know how to work through it. And I went and I sat down with someone, and I was like, it's really bad, and I don't like talking to people.
Yeah. I don't think any of us do.
I didn't want to sit there and talk to someone, and when all they have to offer is, "Oh, here's some breathing exercises that you can do," but I
Mhm.
think that's where we're going to call it for good. Like that's
Right.
pretty much all I can offer you. I'm like, "Well, this is kind of a scam."
Yeah.
And so I kind of tabled it for there. And then a few years later, I officially got a diagnosis of anxiety and depression. And they put me on some medication, and it didn't really work. And I just kind of felt like maybe there's something deeper. Maybe it's not just anxiety and depression,
Mhm.
because I would often struggle with just sitting on the couch and there being like, there's dishes to do, there's laundry to fold,
Mhm.
and I know I have to get it done. But it just seems like those little tasks are so overwhelming that my mind just shuts down, and I sit down on the couch and I doom scroll on my phone.
Yep.
And
That's
to
me too.
yeah, and to the normal person it looks like, well, you're just being lazy, you're sitting there on the couch just scrolling through your phone. But what they don't know is what's going on in my head is, why can't I get up? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing a lot of women getting diagnosed with ADHD that went through the same struggles that I had felt my entire life.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then I went and talked to a different therapist, and she said, yeah, a lot of women are coming forward and they're getting diagnosed because we know how to diagnose women now.
Yeah.
Right.
Because with boys, it was usually hyperactivity.
Mhm.
And when you become a disruption, it's easier to diagnose you with something. But
Yeah.
for girls, usually we're quiet,
Mhm.
the smart kids in class, the not very social kids.
Yeah.
We aren't disturbances, so we just go under the radar.
Yeah.
Well, and
And
the big thing, the hyperactivity in boys will often present like on physical, like on the outside.
yes.
Mhm.
A lot of times, at least from what I have learned
It's
from my
internal.
diagnosis, the hyperactivity in women is more in the brain.
Yep.
So it's like your brain cannot shut off. Your brain is doing the hyperactivity thing. And I
Mhm.
know for me, I will go through thoughts, completely random thoughts, and I will forget them like 2 seconds later.
Yes.
And I'm like, what was I thinking
I'll
about?
come up with a
I have no
grocery
idea.
list and ask my husband, what are we having for dinner again?
Yes.
And we're at the store, and I'm like, what are we getting? Oh, that's right. And it is brutal. And they put me on some medication for it for a little bit, but it didn't really work for me. And one of the downfalls of anxiety is when something seems like it's going to be a long process, I shut down. So I haven't gone back to get better medication. It's not that I don't want to be on medication. It's just that the process of trying to see what works just
Yeah.
And
seems so
going through.
daunting.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it.
Wait, so that medication that you originally started on, you're not on that anymore?
No.
Oh,
I've
okay.
gone through like 3 different
Oh, wow.
medications, and none of them have really worked, because originally it was for anxiety and depression, which ADHD will present itself
Mhm.
as anxiety and depression. So usually you'll go
Yeah.
through that diagnosis first until they can really pinpoint what it is.
Yeah.
And then I've only been on one ADHD medication, but it made me feel like absolute crap. Like I felt great in the moment, but then a few hours later I would just become comatose,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah.
was not working for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, in all honesty, it's kind of funny because you guys, so going back to a couple points that actually BugBee specifically brought up, that she was running on empty. So with me, mostly my anxiety and depression, they are such contradictory moods that
Mhm.
a lot of the times I feel like I'm just burning the candle at both ends.
Mhm.
And eventually it does get to a point where I am just running on empty. And it's funny kind of always talking to my husband about it because he is super supportive about my mental health, and he is very understanding of what I need to do in order to take care of myself, but he doesn't really understand, like or he can't really relate. And it's such a funny conversation talking to him about it because he tells me all the time, you know, I don't even think I have depression. He's like, I don't know if I have depression, but that is such a big key phrase to me, is I don't think and I don't know.
Yeah.
And that tends to be the case with a lot of people. I mean, you just mentioned it in your
Yeah, I didn't
story.
know.
Yeah, where you didn't know. But then somebody like me who knew instantly I was depressed. Obviously, I went through a very dark time in my life in order to find that point, but I I, I knew that my state of being wasn't correct in that moment, because I like getting to know me as a person. I'm a pretty genuinely happy person. I'm
Mhm.
very calm on the exterior, and I I don't really overreact per se to a lot of negative moments. I tend to just kind of look at them and be like, of course, because and I deal with it, and I just I do what needs to be done, and I move on. Obviously, if you make me mad, that's a completely different story. I am I am mad when I get mad.
It's a different story,
And
sure.
it's funny because in those moments where I am just running on empty, I don't have the drive or the willingness to want to do the things in my day. So that's where the depression tends to kick in. But then the anxiety is telling me, oh, you need to do this, or this, and this winds up falling apart. If you don't do this, that, and that falls apart.
Yep.
And then it kicks into my depression where I tell myself, oh my gosh, I'm not getting those things done. I'm totally failing. And then I start beating myself up over the things I should be doing but haven't done because I don't have the drive to do it.
Yeah.
And one of the best examples of this is, and I know me saying this is definitely going to get some uproar here, but there are days I wake up and I just don't want to be a mom today. And don't get me wrong, internet, before you go ahead and start biting my head off, there is nothing I would not do for my children, because obviously I get up and I be mom.
Yeah.
There is no days off from being mom, and
Exactly.
I love my children more than anything. There is nothing I would not do for them. But there are just days where I am so empty. I just don't have the capacity or the energy to give them what they deserve.
Yes.
And that's what I mean by when I say I don't want to be mom today. Is just I can't physically do it, mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yeah.
Because there are points in my depression where I don't sleep right. I stop eating right. I am just trying to get through the day and get back to bed.
Yep.
And so for example, my 7-year-old little boy. Gosh, words are hard today.
Aren't they?
Yes.
But yeah, my 7-year-old little boy, I love him to death. He makes me so proud. And for those of you on the YouTube video, I actually have like a full Zelda sleeve. So that video game is actually the video game that got me into video games. And it's kind of a very big inspiration point in my life for a lot of my creativeness and things like that. So my 7-year-old actually followed in those footsteps, where Zelda was the video game that got him into into video games. My gosh, we really cannot work today. Holy cow. But yeah, so Zelda was the video game that got him into video games and kind of followed me in those footsteps, which was fantastic. Like, I am so proud of that aspect. It's so exciting because I get to play Zelda, he gets to play Zelda, and it's just a beautiful moment I get to share with my kid. But there are days where I will just wake up in the morning and immediately it is 4 hours of my morning just talking about Zelda, which, don't get me wrong, in any other scenario, especially with adults that obviously grew up with the games and things like that, I will talk Zelda with you all day. But with my 7-year-old, it is Zelda also mixed in with his imagination.
Yeah.
And so I cannot a lot of the times process what it is that he's trying to tell me. And so there are points where he'll be like, Mom, I just beat Ganon in Hyrule Field while Mario Kart racing, and there was this horse, and I captured this Goron, and I threw him in the lake, and then there were fishes. And I'm just like,
What?
Back up?
Yeah.
Are we talking about Mario Kart or Zelda? Like, it's a moment where I don't have the physical and emotional mental capacity in order to process that level of his imagination. And as his mom, I never purposely discourage that imagination of his, because I want that to grow. I want that to flourish. But there are just moments where I can't keep up with that energy level. And then I start feeling like I'm failing, like I'm a bad mom, because I can't give him that level of same excitement. Because normally when I'm okay and I'm in a good state, he'll talk to me about those things and I'll go, oh, really? Can you show me, buddy? And I'll let him kind of teach me how to play Zelda. And so it's one of those things where on those days, I just wake up and I'm like, yeah, buddy, sounds great. Like, awesome. You know, you'll have to show me later. And it's just, and it's not really the energy I feel like my kid deserves. And that is a lot of me too. I mean, obviously it's okay to kind of just let your kid say what he needs to and move on. But at the same time, I do feel like I want to give him more. And when I can't, I feel like I'm failing him. And it's a very big struggle for me, is that I feel like I'm failing. And that's really where a lot of my depression kicks in. So it's funny because you know how bad it is, because you babysat him for a couple times.
I was just thinking about that. You were going on about, you know, Mario Kart and all that. And I was watching the boys one morning. You guys had to go to work, and I think we were going on a trip or something. That afternoon. I don't remember exactly. But I was watching
another
the
concert.
boys.
We were leaving for the Ozark concert.
Oh, that makes sense. But yeah, he came running out of the room. He's like, Aunt Bailey. And I'm like, yeah, I'm over here. And I just woke up. I'm like, all sleepy. And he comes running. He's like, where are you? And he goes in the wrong room. I'm like, I'm over here. And he comes running in. I figure I'm going to get a big old hug and right into Zelda. Which is fine. However, at this time, I hadn't played Zelda yet. It's not a game that I really grew up on. But it is something that I've been wanting to play because I've watched you play it several times when it's just so I've been down here. And now he's talking to me about all these things. I'm like, I have no idea what he's saying.
She quickly found out, though. I will tell you that.
I was like, I don't know. I don't know what any of this means. I'm like, great. That's
you
great, bud.
The default parent answer. Oh.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Really?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But yes, I think the next week or a couple weeks after that, I got Zelda so I could play it because I needed to be able to talk to him about Zelda and understand at least somewhat of what he was saying.
Yeah, that's best auntie status right there, where she literally goes out and buys a video game so she can talk to her nephew about it, who,
Yeah.
by the way, totally is not obsessed with Zelda at the very moment. That time has passed.
Short-lived.
Yeah, short-lived. Now he just wants to run around and do whatever his imagination tells him to at the moment.
Yeah, as kids do.
Yeah. And which I have to admit, I am super proud of her Zelda obsession that has come in, because she literally will disappear on me after talking for like 15, 20 minutes to each other, catching up on our day or whatever. And she will just disappear on me for 4 hours and then finally respond to me and go, sorry, I was playing Zelda. I'm sitting here like, I can't even be mad at you.
I know. You just messaged me back. You're like, I'm so proud.
Yeah,
of you.
I'm so proud. Because I know that level of obsession. Currently, it is with Baldur's Gate,
Yes.
but I mean, I know that level of obsession, so I
Mhm.
can't even be mad about that.
Yeah. And I mean, even as your son's interests have changed just over the last few months, not that I'm not interested in Zelda anymore, but I'm not playing it as much. My current hyper focus is all on books right now.
You're
So now
welcome.
I disappear and I'm like, oh, sorry, I was reading
Yeah, yeah.
for 3 hours. Yes.
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 Yep.
We
It
love
does happen.
dissociating.
Is my house a mess? Absolutely.
But is my mind happy?
Yes.
And truthfully, that is all that matters, is that your mind is happy.
Yes.
It definitely gets to be a struggle for sure. And honestly, it's funny because talking about our anxiety and depression, it can be a very odd conversation, especially late at night. So just to kind of give you guys a context on how we really deal with our mental health struggles, we name our anxiety, and there's a really funny story as to how that came about. So we're gonna have a little background story here. So one night I was going through a really tough time, and my anxiety was just at its all-time high. And I'm texting BugBee, and just so you guys kind of understand our friendship a little bit. So BugBee and I are like best friends. I mean, we are kind of the two that really started the extension of the group chat.
Yeah.
So our other friend that kind of went through the mental health situation, she is also a friend of ours. So as BugBee mentioned earlier, our husbands grew up together. Kix over here is actually my friend because my husband is in the military, and their husbands know, our husbands. My gosh, I cannot word today. This is ridiculous. But so our husbands are actually friends because they work at the same base.
Yeah.
So that's how Kix and I met, and I introduced them to each other. And so really, when they say that how introverts make friends, the one extrovert finds them, adopts them, and that's how. Yeah, unfortunately, I am the extrovert in that situation.
And you've adopted 3 introverts.
I have adopted 3 introverts, so
you just drag us places.
Yeah,
by our ears.
It's
kicking and
also
screaming.
really hilarious because I am also technically, so personality-wise, I'm actually what's called an ambivert.
Yeah.
So for those of you that didn't know that existed, so an ambivert is actually the perfect in-between of an introvert and an extrovert. So ambiverts tend to lean more towards the introvert side. So especially with me, most of the time, I don't want to leave my house. I'm very comfortable being indoors, just doing what I want to do in my own house.
Yeah.
But if for whatever reason you can convince me to go out, I adjust really easily to that scenario and I become the social butterfly. So ambiverts tend to kind of be the perfect, adapting type of personality, which is very much me. And so when it comes to these 3, they are true introverts.
Yes.
Yeah, they get anxiety and have to mentally prep themselves to leave the house. My brother, same way. He is a very big introvert. So I am definitely the extrovert that kind of extended our group chat. But so anyways, BugBee and I, we talk a lot just privately, just between the two of us, you know, as best friends do. And Kix and I tend to hang out a lot, and so she's another one of my best friends, but she will eventually move away and leave me, so you know,
not by choice.
And then we'll be sad.
Yeah, we will just be really sad. But anyways, so truthfully, I love all of my best friends equally, but I mean, BugBee and I, we have that special connection. So as much as you're not supposed to choose favorites, sorry guys, she's my favorite. just,
Just trying to make a heart with my fingers, but I have a cup in my hand. So it's got
Okay, this is
a
what-
small
this is
lump
what
on
the
one
kids are
side and a
doing
big
today.
lump on the other
I
side.
mean, it's still a
This is
really
what the
cute
kids are
heart.
doing today.
Oh yeah, just the
Yeah.
hand signals. I don't know.
I can't.
So if you
My
guys are on
fingers
the
do not-
podcast, they are attempting to make heart symbols with their hands. So it's just
Am I am I doing it?
oh, they got it. So
That took entirely too long.
that
I'm too old for this.
definitely
I know I feel old now.
way too much effort. But so the whole thing is that so with our friendship, BugBee and I were talking one night, and I was really struggling with my anxiety that evening, and I was telling her I don't know what's going on. I'm so stressed out about this and that, and just everything that was kind of going on with my life.
Mhm.
And mind you, this is like 11:30 at night.
Yeah, it was pretty late.
And we tend to stay up pretty late just chatting with each other. And like I said, since we have our group of friends, we don't really text anybody outside of our group chat. So we always know, okay, if my phone goes off, it's one of them.
Yeah.
And so she replies to me after maybe like 15-20 minutes of not hearing anything, me writing big old long paragraphs of just everything that's going wrong with me right now. And her literal reply back to me is
After paragraphs.
yeah, after
It was
paragraphs of text. Her literal reply back to me is, I just think Vincent's getting to you. And I'm looking at this text message, and I scroll back through my paragraphs, like looking at this, like,
Who
when
is
did I mention
Vincent?
a Vincent? Yeah, I was like, when did I say something about a Vincent? And then I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, who the heck is Vincent? And it just threw me off. So that was my reply to her was, who is Vincent? And her reply back, oh, I meant for that to say anxiety. And I'm sitting there going, those letters aren't even anywhere near each other on a keyboard. How did you even get Vincent from anxiety? So ever since then, my anxiety has been called Vincent because it just became such a hilarious joke in that moment that I was like, okay, there's no way I cannot call it that now because, and it makes it 10 times funnier because anytime my anxiety starts flaring up, I'll just be like, yeah, Vincent's totally on my case today. I need Vincent to go away.
Yeah.
I need Vincent to go get locked back up in the dungeon.
Yeah.
And it makes it such an easier way to kind of cope with it, where it's just officially this annoying person that never goes away.
Yeah, it's like a way of accepting it for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a part of you. It's just part of who you are. And
Yeah.
that part of me, unfortunately, is named Vincent.
So we named her Anxiety Vincent, and then, of course, me being me, I was like, oh, I need to name my anxiety. First thing that came to my mind, Marco.
Yep.
So we have Marco and Vincent.
But it was funny because then you told your coworker about it, right? And
Yes, I did.
You played a guessing game with it. I'll let you tell him.
Yeah, because so I was just having an anxious day at work. I don't remember exactly what was going on, but I casually had just mentioned, oh, Marco's just getting on my nerves. And my coworkers didn't know who Marco was. They're like, Marco? And I'm like, oh, sorry. So then I went into the backstory of how her and I named our anxiety, and mine was named Marco. And she goes, is hers named Polo? And I'm like, well, no, but now I wish it was.
Missed the beat on that one.
Rewrite.
Had we named mine first, it probably would be, because
Yeah.
our brains would work like that.
Right. But nope, mine came first. So unfortunately, we now have a Vincent and a Marco. And Kix over here literally just gave her anxiety a name
Yeah.
not too long ago.
But yeah.
Yeah, and because I had never really thought about naming it before, I never really thought of it as an entity, because I am not a professional.
We are
I'm not a
not.
None of
medical
us are
professional.
professionals.
We are just a bundle of chaos.
I need
I'm
to-
letting you know that.
I need to clarify that, but It seems like there is a really heavy stigma surrounding ADHD. Like, oh, it doesn't exist. Oh, you just need to plan better. Oh, you're just maybe lazy. Oh, you're just tired. Or, you
Yeah.
just give up a little too easily. And so to me, it doesn't all the time feel real. So I don't really think of it as something.
Yeah.
But I needed to come up with a name for it. And I apologize to any Emilys out there. But I've always seemed to have beef with someone named Emily, so that's what I named mine.
God forbid we get people on like our comment section that are named Emily. They're gonna be like, "Oh, Kix hates me."
Emily, if you're listening, you're probably a lovely person. It's nothing personal.
Full disclaimer: you are a lovely person.
We can try and make that whole heart thing again, but I already forgot how to do it.
Oh,
Okay, that's for you, Emily.
just for Emily.
Just for anybody named Emily.
Yeah.
Forget Vincent and Marco. It's
Yeah.
specifically
Emily.
just for the Emilys out there.
Emily, we love you.
You do realize now we have to like come out with some kind of t-shirt that literally says "I heart Emily."
Yeah,
Emily.
Emily, I
With
love
the
you.
little finger hearts.
Oh my gosh. I officially feel like that's gonna become the new like Carl or like Karen or just
Yeah.
like just randomly. Emily, you're a lovely person.
Emily.
But at least it's a positive one, you know?
She's such an
like,
Emily.
Yeah,
Such
she's
an Emily.
She's so sweet.
Yeah. We need a positive Karen. We can
Emily,
make
Which
it Emily.
It would be Emily, I guess.
We can make it Emily.
But then the ironic part is that you are naming your anxiety Emily because you always have a beef with Emily.
Maybe I'm just trying to put a positive spin on it. I'm rebranding
There you go.
ADHD.
Branding Emily.
Yeah. Just turning all Emily's good.
Yeah. Rebranding.
But gosh, Emily's getting on my nerves today. It's like, okay, I thought we liked Emily. We do, just not today.
Not today.
Not today. Go away, Emily. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad for anybody named Emily that's watching our show. And, Vincent Marco, I guess we apologize for you too.
Yeah. As an afterthought.
I feel like Vincent and Marco is not as common as
That's true.
Emily.
That
Yeah.
is very
maybe
true.
it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know any Vincents or Marcos.
I knew a Vincent, I guess I should say, but that was in high school. Yeah, I was in high school.
I can't think of any.
And then Marco is way too close to Marcus. So for me in my head, I'm just like, oh, we're just annoyed
Yeah.
with Marcus again.
It's
So
fair.
for those of you guys that don't know, we're going to give a little shout out here to my brother. His name is Marcus. We call him Kuma. So for those of you that don't know, that is Japanese for bear because he is literally a bear-sized human being.
He
I
is.
mean, just... And we'll have to post a picture sometime of me and
Just-
him right next to each other just so you guys get
Yeah.
the context. I am 5'4", by the way. So when you see how tall he is next to me, yeah, he is the bear
He's a
size
bear.
of a man.
Mhm.
So his name is Marcus. So with her calling him or her anxiety Marco and then me associating with Marcus, it makes it really hilarious because Marcus is actually the producer of our podcast, by the way, just so big shout out to him because he puts in a lot of effort to set up a lot of our
Oh,
set
yeah.
and lighting
He's
and
a lovely
cameras.
person.
Yeah, and recording. But then he's also like really bossy where he's just like, get up and move. And we're just like, God, okay, quit yelling at us.
Hand me this cord.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
behind your head,
fine.
not in front of your head.
I'll put in some effort.
Yeah, God. We have the hardest job on the set, which is to talk
Yeah.
and keep people entertained.
And be
okay?
pretty and lovely and
And meanwhile, he's over here staying up till like 2 a.m. to like get everything set up.
Right?
And we're just like, oh my gosh. And then he's over here, move out of your way. I need to move the couch. Like, we're just like,
but now he can't say it's a thankless job because we're saying thank you.
It is, yeah.
That's true. But really though, he is an amazing person and he puts so much work into like getting this done for us and really just helping us out with the technical side of things. So he's a very, very big part of this podcast as much as you may or may not see him around on our YouTube. But yeah. So as she's talking about Marco over there and she's like, oh yeah, Marco's really on my nerves today. I'm like, yeah, Marcus is on mine too. He's yelling at me for something.
Yeah, it killed my character in D&D several times.
Yeah, he is part of our D&D crew. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are interested in kind of our set background, if you guys are watching the YouTube video, we have a lot of really nerdy things on here.
Yeah.
And a lot of these nerdy things are kind of just big pieces of our personality. A lot of the anime figurines and just kind of random Zelda stuff is really all my personal tastes in things. Books tend to be Kix's thing, and a lot of the Star Wars stuff, in case you couldn't tell by her shirt if you're watching the YouTube
My shirt
video.
does say Star Wars. I
It's
also
Star Wars.
have a half sleeve of Star Wars. I'm working on the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I also got married on May 4th because May the 4th be with you.
Nice.
Full Star Wars
Nice.
nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are just really big pieces of our personality and just kind of who we are. So the set kind of tends to be well maintained by Marcus, and so a lot of the times he'll tell me like, hey, we got to swap this out, it's causing too much reflection on the camera, you know. And he really has like the keen eye for this. So as she's complaining about Marco, I'm over here thinking she's complaining about Marcus. Like, that is just how my head works. And I'm just like, man, Marcus really got on her nerves today.
Well, it's funny that you say you think of, like, when I talk about Marco, you think of Marcus, because when I talk about Marco, I think about, like, the persona that I've made of him in my head.
Yeah. Wait, what persona?
So I have to make him a person. He can't just have a name. He's got to have, like, a face, and, you know, it's got to be a person, like an actual thing.
So what persona have you given him?
Well, in my head, Marco is a taco.
Okay, why?
Alright.
Why?
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
No,
okay,
maybe I should have left him in my head. It's fine.
You're making this hard to be
well,
a judgment
too
free
bad.
zone, Bailey.
Too bad because you officially let him out. So, why on earth would you associate those two things together? Because nobody hates tacos, and if you do, there's something
No.
we would have to definitely question your mental health.
You might be an Emily.
I don't-
I say no. Nobody hates tacos, and
yeah, nobody hates. So what?
okay. So a lot of times when you're eating tacos, they just kind of fall apart, but we still love them anyways. That's what Marco does to me. He makes me fall apart, but I'm still lovable anyways.
Okay, I don't really know how I feel about associating humans and things falling apart. It's just, I feel like
Okay,
this is
emotionally
getting
falling
worse.
apart.
I feel like this is getting worse.
Anyway, in my head, he's a taco.
Oh, see,
That is okay.
I
It's
can't.
okay.
I
I'm
can't.
validating you.
I cannot wrap my head around this. Like, why would you associate something everybody loves with just?
It's like you go to Taco Bell and you get this taco, but you don't eat it till you get home. You unwrap that, it immediately falls apart.
Yeah, the bottom's all soggy. It's gone.
Yeah.
Wait, so hold on. Is he a crunchy taco?
Yes, crunchy taco.
Okay, that makes so
Yeah.
much more sense. I could not wrap my
You
head
were
around
picturing
that.
a soft taco, weren't
I
you?
was totally picturing a soft taco. I was like, why in the world would you ruin tacos for me like that? I just
No, crunchy taco.
By the way, for those of you that were interested in how my OCD works, you just saw it live. Because I could not process. Like, it did not make sense in my head, and my anxiety would just not let that one
It's
go.
like, what's happening?
Why would you do that? And
No, a crunchy
okay,
taco.
that makes so much more sense because yeah, everybody hates crunchy tacos, and if you like crunchy tacos, again, we need to question your mental health.
I mean, I like crunchy tacos, but
do
we
like
already
crunchy
questioned
tacos.
my mental health, so
Oh,
it's fine.
Have you ever had a Doritos taco from Taco Bell?
I do not like crunchy tacos
So
because
good.
Those are
I'm not even telling you.
certified bussin'.
I call those stabby tacos because they always
stabby
stab
tacos.
the gums of your mouth, and then at that point it is no longer enjoyable because I am just in pain. I don't want to be
Hence the
in pain
persona.
by my food. Oh,
Now it
gosh.
all makes sense. That's Marco.
I don't know how I feel at the fact that was the one connecting factor that allowed my brain to process that thought
That
of
they
just
stabbed you in the mouth.
It just- at this point, I'm just like, what would I even personify my anxiety as? I can't think of anything that hateful as a crunchy taco.
I mean, but I like crunchy tacos, so it doesn't have to be something that you hate.
Mine's like a little devil on my shoulder. Like, a sit down on the couch. Sounds really nice. No. I need stuff. I have to do stuff. No.
down on the
let's go sit down. Because once I sit down, I'm not getting up. I'm
Same.
down.
I take my shoes off when I get to the house.
When I'm down, I'm down.
Done.
Yeah. Like, I have such good intentions every time I come home from work. Because I only work part-time for right now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come home. I'm going to clean. I'm going to work out. I'm going to get my schoolwork done. No, I come home. I sit down on the couch. And I take a nap. And next thing I know, my husband's walking through the door at 3 p.m. like, oh, that's what we're doing today. Like,
Yes. Yes, sir.
that's what we did today.
Okay, so we got an anxious taco, a
A
devil.
Yeah.
Now I just feel like I'm under pressure. Under pressure. I'm just kidding.
It's okay. You made me name mine. And now I just made a whole army of Emily's upset.
Oh my gosh, there's another t-shirt idea for us. Emily Army.
I feel like yours should be like a sad panda, like your cup.
Oh my gosh, that would be perfect.
Because you're always like, oh, sad panda.
Yeah, I know. Just my cute
That
little
just
sad
seems like
panda
you.
cup. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
I guess I can see that because nobody likes a sad panda. I just,
Exactly.
Okay, fine.
But they are really cute.
Okay, fine. So we got a sad panda, an anxious taco, and
And a
a
devil.
devil.
Shoulder devil.
A shoulder devil.
Yeah.
I'm
the
gonna
fun.
get a tattoo of a sad panda with a devil on his shoulder eating a taco.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're gonna make my panda eat your anxious taco?
Yeah. The
Okay,
crunchy
I didn't
taco.
think about that. I was
The
just trying,
Doritos kind.
just trying to put all the things together.
You might want to rethink that. I swear to God,
Okay.
you are such a tattoo junkie.
Well,
you will
that-
get a
yeah.
tattoo for anything.
Why
That I
not?
will.
Yeah. Treat yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, okay, like literally, we will be at the most random location, and I kid you not, this is actually a true story. We were standing in line for one of our concerts, waiting to get into a venue. A
I remember
bee
this.
flies by her head, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, we should totally get a tattoo of a bee." And I'm looking at her,
She's like,
going,
no.
"We?" And she's like, "Yeah, we should just get tattoos of bees." She's like, "It'll be like our matching bestie tattoos." And I look at her, and I literally am like, "No, I don't want a bee tattoo. Why would I get that?" She's just like, "I don't know." She's like, "One just flew past my head."
Okay, but in my defense, it was making some sense in my head because my nickname growing up was Bee.
Yeah.
So, I look a bumblebee.
Yeah.
Somebody stabbed my leg 15 million times and put it on my leg forever.
I
I will
know.
give you hundreds of dollars to do it.
I know. I always tell my tattoo artist, you and I have a very special relationship because I pay you massive amounts of money to cause me pain for hours on end, and I keep coming back.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, and we've talked about this before, there is something extremely therapeutic about getting a
Oh,
tattoo.
absolutely.
I actually fell asleep during my last tattoo session.
You did.
And she
Yeah,
can
I was
vouch for
with
that
you,
one.
and her tattoo artist was like, Adella, how you doing? And I'm like, well, she's asleep, so she's fine. And he just laughed and kept on doing his thing.
Like, all right.
Which is not the first time I've fallen asleep during a tattoo appointment. So for those of you on the YouTube that can actually see this, like I showed you guys earlier, I have a full Zelda sleeve. And then on this arm, I kind of have some hodgepodge tattoos, a couple song lyrics and a anime character on my wrist. And so really the only areas of my body previous to my last tattoo session that I had been tattooed was just my arms. Well, this time I just decided that wasn't enough torture for myself and decided to go even more. And I got one on my side. It's a kind of Astarian D&D themed tattoo. And so if any of you have gotten tattoos on your side, that is one of the worst places to get tattoos, especially like when it's up near the ribcage area. That sucks so bad. And then the other one I got was my calf, which also not a fun place to get tattooed. I mean, getting tattooed in general really isn't fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain involved with that, but there are some areas of your body that genuinely can handle the pain a lot better than others. And the two places I chose to get a tattoo in that one session were both two of the most sucky places to get a tattoo in general. So first off, we said, and I'll be honest with you, I want to use it, attempting, I guess I should say, attempting to use some numbing cream, because I'm like, you know what? I have a full sleeve. I have other tattoos on my arm. I've done my time. I don't really care. I'm gonna totally try to get some numbing cream on this one. So BugBee went first to get her tattoos, because we actually got matching tattoos. We just put them in different places, and then we both got personal tattoos. So it was funny because I'm sitting there letting like the numbing cream soak into my skin, and then and then it comes to be my turn, and he starts tattooing me. He starts on a numb area, and all of a sudden I find that the numbing cream did not work in other areas. So he's tattooing me on a numb area, instantly hits a not numb area, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what did I do to myself? And it was such a mental game, which I think was the first time tattooing for me was not therapeutic. It was actually the most stressful session
you were
I've
struggling.
ever had. Yeah.
I mean, you sat there like a champ, but you were like, I could tell just by your face, and you were
I was mentally struggling on that one. If you want to talk about how bad anxiety can get a tattoo with numbing cream and expect it to work, and it doesn't. And so I'm sitting there, and it was such a mental game I had to play with myself, because I'm sitting there and he'll tattoo a numb area, and then he instantly goes to a not numb area, which, by the way, a majority of my side piece, or not side piece, I guess I probably could have phrased that better, but my like a majority of my side tattoo was not numb. And so it was such a mental game of, okay, is he going to hit a numb area as he's going to do this one? Is he going to get a not numb area? And there was one specific piece of this tattoo, and we can post pictures of these tattoos later so you guys can get better visuals. Well, the one that's on my side is, it involves a dagger. So there are 3 specific lines on there that he had to do in one go, and he had to do that 3 times for each of those lines. So I'm sitting there on the table, and luckily my tattoo artist is amazing. Like he's so funny and just really charismatic, has amazing bedside manner. And he warns me, okay, Adella, I'm going to need you to sit really still for this, because these are 3 very straight lines that I have to just do in one go. And I said, okay. And he goes, we're going to have to do this 3 times. So I was like, okay. And I'm sitting on that table, and I'm in like the most uncomfortable position about this, by the way. Like my arms like up over my head, and I'm like stretched out. And it was just, overall, it was just such a stressful experience. And it was funny because then he starts with a numb area, immediately goes down into a not numb area for a long period of time, and then goes into a numb area. And so he does that 2 more times, and it's such a mental game, because like as it starts out, you're expecting it to be numb, and then all of a sudden you're in pain, and then you're suddenly not in pain, and you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, and so, oh my Lord, if there was any time I wanted to strangle Vincent right there, that was one of those moments. And it was really funny because as he would, do a certain part of the artwork and then move on to a different part, I'm playing a guessing game, laying on that table going, is it gonna be numb, is it gonna hurt? And then all of a sudden he touches it, and I'm like attempting not to jolt because I can't move. And so it was such a stressful time. But then as soon as he hits my calf, the thing's not numb at all. So I'm just like, whatever, I know what to expect, I'm going to sleep. And I just knocked right out. Because I was so mentally tired from the side tattoo that I was just like, whatever, I'm sleeping through this.
Well, okay, so and for you, when you get tattoos, it's kind of like a relaxing type of therapy. For me, it's an adrenaline rush, and that adrenaline high that I get when that tattoo first starts, there's no comparison to that feeling that I have found in life. I would just keep getting tattoos so I can feel that high.
It is a really good thing that tattoos aren't cheap. Or you would just be covered in
I would be.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but my gosh, eventually you will run out of canvas space.
Yeah. I got one on my thigh this last time for the first time, and that was just Amazing. I need all my whole thighs just need tattooed now. All of them. It's great.
Oh my gosh. How do you handle tattoos, Kix?
I went into shock with that one.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I have a piece on my calf. I have an allergic reaction to scratches. And I mean, it doesn't really affect how the tattoo goes in, but basically the entire time I'm getting a tattoo, it's like I'm having an allergic reaction. So this one I sat for 4.5 hours, and I just got like full body shakes, and I had a fever that night, and I just went into shock, but it didn't stop me from going back get more. Yeah.
I honestly, if I were that bad, I'd be like, nope, never again.
Yeah, I'm planning my next one.
I'm such a baby about that. When I don't feel good, I hate that because again, anxiety takes over and I'm just like, I should be doing way more important things right now than resting. I'm like, forget taking care of myself. I need to do stuff. And oh my gosh, like during COVID, I got so stressed and depressed that I didn't understand it. I physically would wake up and I would just start crying because I felt like I was doing nothing with my day. It was the worst feeling. We'll go on. We'll kind of touch up on that at next episode. But
Yeah.
I can't do it. I need to be productive in my day, and so that's why I never really understand how anxiety and depression go together. But I mean, I have a pretty good generalization idea, but I just
If I could be
Yeah.
a hobbit, I'd be a hobbit.
Yeah, I'm complete opposite. If I could just sit there and do nothing all day, that would be great.
Yep. So just live the hobbit
No,
life.
Yeah.
No, I need to be busy.
I took a mental health day not too long ago, and I spent all day in bed reading a book, and it was like the best thing ever. And the next day, I felt so amazing, like so rested,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even that I slept because I didn't really sleep on that day, and I didn't like go to bed early or anything like that. So I didn't get a bunch of extra sleep, but it's just that whole centering myself and just letting myself relax and just have a day to myself. I felt amazing the next day.
Yeah. And honestly, that kind of goes back into what we were talking about earlier, where, I say this all the time, you can't fill on an empty cup. And I think a lot of those times, those mental health days are super important. And it's one of those things where a lot of that tends to get overlooked. I mean, whether that's sitting down and reading a book or, vegging out on the TV for an hour or just sitting in silence. I mean, it's crazy to realize how much those little things can actually help you in your day to day. And I know for a fact, all of that is so much easier said than done. I am the perfect person to vouch about how hard that is to do because a lot of the times when it comes to taking care of myself or just sitting there and doing something for me, I keep thinking there are a million other things I should be taking care of right now. And I worry about them. And that anxiety tends to be a big, how do you say it? Like a big instigator of all of that, where I just feel like I can never relax. And I know, and I've honestly learned, and it was very, very hard for me to have to learn to take that time for yourself, which is why I'm very big on planners and really just sitting down and taking that hour or so to plan out my week because mentally I feel so much better. I mean, it's amazing to see how much of a difference just something so simple can make in your week. And I think it's definitely something that really, more than anything, guys, if there's anything small to kind of help you just get through the day to day, do something for yourself. It doesn't have to be super grandiose. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It's just sit in the bathtub, take a soak, take an extra long shower if you need to, or just lay in bed and just lay in the silence, lay in the dark or anything really that will just give you some peace where you can just sit there, unwind, let your mind kind of float away to whatever that may be. And just give yourself some time. Do that once, twice a week. You would be very surprised at how different you will feel after that moment. And I know, again, super, super hard to basically say or do, because you always think that there's something else you should be taking care of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as I just said, you cannot fill on an empty cup. And if your cup is running on empty, it is going to be the worst case scenario possible for you. You cannot take care of anything else when you can't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And like I said, I am not a mental health professional by any means. Honestly, if you feel like you need that kind of help, go seek it. There are tons of great options out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just joined BetterHelp recently and got connected with a really good therapist. This is not sponsored, by the way. But you know, I felt like that program was really good for me because I liked the fact that I could kind of pick the schedule. I could do it from anywhere. And the biggest part about it with me was I gave myself a lot of excuses. I mean,
Yeah, you did.
BugBee can vouch for this one.
Yeah.
I talked about doing therapy like 6 months ago because I was getting to a point where, oh, hey, Hades joined us. But you know, oh, okay. Apollo's just gonna rub his face on the carpet here. But you know, I was telling BugBee, and I knew that my anxiety and my depression were starting to get really bad.
Yeah.
I knew I was kind of at a point where I needed to start looking to get help, but I kept giving myself excuses. I was like, I don't have the time. I have all this work travel. I have to go to work. I got kids. I kept giving myself excuses left and right.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because it got to a certain point where she was like, if you don't sign up for therapy, I am taking your credit card and I'm just signing you up. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's fine. Like, you know, I really didn't think anything of it. Well, finally, I hit my breakdown point. The biggest thing with me is that I'm the type of person that I will just keep going. And even if I'm running on empty, I'm now using the fumes.
Yeah.
So I will bring myself to that breaking point, which granted, not healthy, totally something I'm working out in therapy. But I won't stop because I feel like just with her adrenaline rush and tattoos, the sense of accomplishing things is kind of what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And so when I get those little wins here and there, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. But it's that moment where I stop getting those little wins and I have to start working towards the bigger wins that I start struggling. And so it got to a point where I was kind of there where I had to start going with the bigger wins, and I just broke. I broke down so hard. There was so many stressful things coming my way in between work, the house, the kids, travel. I mean, I was just at the end. Like, I ran out of just anything in my cup. I ran out of fumes. I hit my end and I just broke. And I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I need to get on therapy. So finally, I signed up through BetterHelp, and I definitely don't regret the decision. The very first session absolutely sucked because, of course, you have to lay everything out there.
Yeah, the first one's always the worst.
It's always the hardest, and it's always the hardest one to have to go through.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I straight out told BugBee, I told Kix, I told my husband, I told my brother. I was like, all of you need to make sure I attend this therapy appointment because I will do everything in my power to make up an excuse to not go.
Yeah.
And so all of them that day were like, therapy, 30 minutes. My brother's like, sit at your computer. My husband's like, you're not leaving that room. I'm just like, oh my God. And like, they all were just like making sure I did it. And that's the biggest thing I would say advice wise, guys, is, you know, if you feel like you need to go to therapy and you know for a fact that you aren't going to go, find that person that will hold you accountable. Find that person that will shove you in the car, lock you in there and say, no, you're going to therapy. And get that support system, because we're lucky enough that we kind of have each other and that we really can lean on each other for that kind of thing. And so if you can find that kind of person in your day-to-day life where you just are willing to talk to them, be open with them about it, and let them know, hey, I need you to make sure I do this. Honestly, once you get to that first session of therapy, it is so much easier after that because you feel comfortable, you establish that safety, you really just understand that you're there to get the tools you need in order to keep going. And granted, don't get me wrong, Kix's story definitely, I'm sure people out there have definitely dealt with a bad therapist situation. Not,
Yeah,
I mean, and
that's something I was gonna say. You also have to find the right therapist for
yes,
you.
uh-huh,
And if the first one you try, if you're not, vibing with that person, don't hesitate to try and find somebody else, because I went through the same thing where I signed up for BetterHelp, and I didn't have any issue with BetterHelp itself, but the therapist that I had, the relationship wasn't working the way I wanted it to. I didn't feel as connected as I wanted to feel. And I, could have changed my therapist through BetterHelp, but I decided I wanted to see somebody in person to just build a, face to face connection, because I felt like that was going to be needed more based on the things that I need to work through. So she could see like full on body language and my emotion and see how I'm processing all of that. So I found somebody else and switched, and she has been absolutely amazing. So if you try and you're like, this is not working, don't give up on it. See if you can find somebody else, because it really does take a minute. Just like medication, you have to try so many different things sometimes to figure out what works. People are the same way. You got to find your people.
that is definitely a very common misconception with medication, is that most people tend to think, oh, medication's the easy route. It's no,
No.
it really isn't. I mean, in all honesty, when it comes to mental health, the reality is there is no easy route. Whether you choose to go the same route as me, where you prefer just therapy and coping techniques and things like that, that's definitely not easy because, like BugBee said earlier, it's a lot of mental prep, a lot of mental fortitude, a lot of, self meditation, reflection, thinking, and processing and things like that, which yeah, there are people out there that just don't have the mental capacity to be able to do that. But then you also have the opposite of that, where there are the people that need the medication and it helps them process and cope and really open up that level of clarity and balances out a lot of those chemicals that really are at that imbalance. And it's definitely a struggle either way you go, because the fact that you are on medication and messing with your body chemistry, that is never an easy thing to do, especially when you have to balance it out. So it can for sure be a very difficult route. So I mean, in all honesty, when it comes to medication, sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I really do sometimes think that's a harder route to go, just because you're not in control of that situation, because your body chemistry has to do what it needs to do in order to level itself out. And there's a huge adjustment period. I mean, you two can speak to that more than I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a huge adjustment period to medication, and I think that's really where it's very tough, is you just kind of have to let things be.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a nope.
Yeah. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I've been taking medication for probably about 2 years now, and I have not been taking one medication for 2 years now. No, 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 no. We've switched out my meds probably 6 or 7 times in the 2 years. So it's a process figuring out exactly what works for you. Not to mention, I was still going through being diagnosed and figuring out exactly what was going on in my brain. And as Kix mentioned earlier, um, you said something about how it seemed hopeless and then you just shut down and you had to quit trying.
Yeah.
When you were talking about it. I felt that so many times, where I would start a medication and be like, yes, this is better. This is better. This is for sure better. And then my husband would notice symptoms that I was like blocking out because I just wanted it to work and I didn't want to deal with having to change. I knew deep down that I was probably going to have to change my meds, but I'm like, nope, this is fine. This is great.
It's such a pain.
We're good. I mean, I'm not crying every day. I'll be fine if I see lines. My husband's like, no, you won't. It's like, you sure?
And
I'll be okay.
I have to say, you know, when BugBee doesn't take her medication,
Yeah,
it is
it's
like
very obvious.
It is apparently obvious, which is hilarious because right before we started recording this episode, Kix had asked, Is it like? Does she just start breaking down and crying? I mean, like how? Like, what's the effect of her? The effect on her is not what you would expect it to be. It's
Yeah. So essentially, my brain just stops working altogether if I forget to take my meds. There was one day the first time I didn't take my meds, and I didn't know how it was gonna affect me, and I didn't even realize that I hadn't taken my meds, but I was struggling all day, and I could not figure out why. And something happened at work, and that was like a whole big thing, and I'm like messaging her, I'm like, what is happening? And then I go to lunch.
messaging me, by the way,
Yeah,
guys,
I know,
for those of
sorry.
you on the podcast that
I
can't see the video.
pointed, gestured. But yeah, so I went home for lunch and I was like, I'm gonna take a shower. Maybe that'll like wake me up, make me feel better. I live in a pretty small town. I can go home and shower in my hour lunch break and get back to work. And so I shower, all that, get dressed.
And Kix and I were actually hanging out that day for some reason because I
Yeah,
had
you
showed
were.
her. Yeah, I can't remember why we were hanging out that day because it was obviously a work day.
Yeah,
I don't remember why we were. I think I was off. I think I was on PTO. I think we were doing
I don't
something.
know.
I don't remember, but I just remember me and Kix were together.
yeah,
But oh my gosh,
yeah.
that day.
Because so I leave the house, go back to work, still kind of struggling with things. And there was one thing that happened that we're going to leave out of the podcast because it involves certain people.
Although the beginning of that was actually really hilarious, and that's the one that had me and Kix rolling.
Yeah, because I couldn't even type it out. I was so flustered with the situation. I sent her a voice message, Adella. I sent Adella a voice message. And it started off, I was in my truck and I'm like, so, and then you hear my nails tapping on the dash. I'm like, your girl forked up.
And the second she starts a message out like that, you know it's gonna be good. We can't tell you the rest of that story, unfortunately, but
It involves some other people and
Yeah.
privacy, so we're not gonna go there. But
yeah. Your girl forked up.
yeah,
And I'm with Kix, by the way, and so I message her and I'm like, can I please share that with Kix? And she's like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
yeah,
So I show the message to Kix and I literally let it play, your girl forked up, and I paused it and I go, this is about to be good. And Kix is already over here in the passenger seat just busting up laughing. She hadn't even got to the actual story yet. So yeah, we play it, and me and Kix are just sitting in the car laughing hysterically because we're just like, this is not her. This is
it's
totally
really
not her.
yeah. It was really not. I normally am pretty good. Like I have my wits about me, very
Very well organized, you know,
for somebody who has ADHD, especially.
very well
It's pretty
organized.
impressive.
Yeah.
I think that's just a combat coping skill for
Yep.
me. I
Yep.
don't know. I
And
hyper focus on it, so
It's really funny because then that first situation happens of your girl forked up.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Kix and
hour
I had went our
later.
separate ways that day, and I'm at home, and she messages me again. Except this time,
It's a
there's
video,
a video.
and it says, "Why did I spin?"
Yeah. So we will have to post this video, or maybe we'll even make it part of the actual YouTube video. I don't know yet. Depends on what Marcus decides to
Yeah.
do with this. But it was really funny because I get this random video of her literally walking out her front door, and she does this 360 spin, shuts the screen door, and then walks down her steps
Yeah.
as if it was a completely normal thing to do.
Yeah.
And she sends it to me and she goes, why am I spinning? And I was like, what are you even doing? And she goes, I was leaving my house. And I'm just sitting there looking at this video going, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you today?
So the funny part is, you walk out my front door, and this was all caught on our Ring camera. You walk out my front door, and you're already facing the steps to go down the steps. But I didn't just go down the steps. No. I spun around and then shut the door forcefully and then went down the steps. For no reason at all. I don't.
We will 100% have
Yeah.
to post that video, but
It's definitely more funny if you actually
Yeah.
see it.
and so strike 2, right? And I'm just like, what is wrong with you today? Well, here's strike 3. So we all genuinely have a pretty similar taste in music, except for Kix. Kix kind of got us on the K-pop train just
Yeah.
recently. It is literally her greatest goal in life right now that she just achieved. So
Yes.
so most of the time, me and BugBee and Kix kind of too on occasion, we listen to a lot of like metal, screamo kind of music.
Mhm.
And so that's the majority of what we listen to. And that night, after those 2 things had happened in the day, she sends me a third thing. And she goes, I'm really vibing with this song right now. And I really don't know if I should share what song it is, but let's just say this song was completely out of left field. I mean,
not even
just
close to what we
just
normally
not
listen to.
even close to
Yeah.
what we listen to. The lyrics were just, what in the world is going on
The
with this
lyrics
song?
were
Yeah.
rated R, but without actually being rated R.
Yeah, Kix
Wink,
and her
wink.
watched the video last night,
We were
and
dying.
while we were trying to get this set ready, and oh my gosh, these 2 were just rolling. I mean, and I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, like what the heck is going on right now? And so she sends me this, and she's like, I'm really vibing with the song right now, and me obviously not wanting to be discouraging here, I'm just like, okay, cool, whatever makes you happy. And again, I followed up, what the heck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I was like, after the 2 things that happened today, now this song, something is up.
What is going on?
Well, let her tell you what happened.
Yeah, so shortly after that, because that was probably, I don't know, around 7-ish or so, and I was getting ready for bed, and I take the majority of my meds at nighttime. Pato needed some pets. He needs some scratches. So I went to take my meds, and I keep my meds in a pill case that's Sunday through Saturday, so I can kind of keep track of, if I've taken them, and because sometimes I will straight up forget if I took them or not, so I have to look. And I went to take them, and I don't remember exactly what day it was, but we'll just say it was a Wednesday. And I get my pill case, and I'm looking, and I'm like, it is not Tuesday, I think. I'm like, no, it's Wednesday. And I was like, oh. So I messaged Adella. I'm like, I figured it out. It's like, I didn't take my meds today. Or last night, it would have been.
Yeah.
And she goes, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, like literally just a light bulb goes off in my head. All the dark clouds just completely dispersed and went away. And I
makes
was
so much
like,
sense now.
oh my gosh, this makes like everything is clear.
Yeah.
And just didn't take her meds. So yeah, when we say that, like, her not taking her meds is a thing, it's definitely a thing. So occasionally we will have to ask her on this podcast, did you take your meds today? Because it will just be so apparently obvious when she doesn't.
If I start rambling on something or like stumbling over my words,
you're gonna have the brain fog of the way Kix currently looks. It's like, I'm so lost right now.
For the record, we got about 4 hours of sleep last night, so
At least we weren't learning K-pop dances this time.
no, last time we were, yeah.
Yeah, last time we were.
We decided to have a sleepover before recording today, and although very fun, no regrets to be had.
Yeah.
We're tired.
We are very tired. But overall, guys, so we actually will end it on that note here, because we have a lot of really interesting topics that we probably could go on, but we're going to save those for future episodes. Join us next week on our episode 2, Working for Vincent, Marco, and Emily, where we're going to talk about all of these mental health struggles in the day-to-day work life, or, just even stay-at-home mom life. So Join us next week on that episode, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this first one. I think we actually made it a little bit longer just so that way you guys got to know us a little bit more and kind of see what you guys are looking forward to. But we will be releasing these episodes every Friday, and hopefully this will give you guys something to look forward to in your weeks. All right, guys, thank you again for joining us on this episode of our new podcast. We look forward to spending it with you again next week. So just remember,
You are loved.
You are never alone.
And this is just us being us.